To you, what was the most compelling piece of evidence or interviews that you did from all the people you talked to in Brazil? Like
in Brazil?
What to you? What was the thing that stood out to you the most? Like,
I met with an Air Force brigadier by the name of Jose Carlos Pereira. I have a photograph of him in uniform somewhere. And he said, I'll talk to you about the UFO phenomenon in Brazil gladly. I could talk about this case in 86, UFOs in Brazil, and I could talk about the Colares case, but I don't want to talk about Varginha. I was like, okay, why are you going to talk about Varginha? Don't even bring it up. I was like, Jesus. So Marco, my partner in Brazil, we did the interview. I honored the fact that he didn't want to, I don't know how I brought it up, but I basically didn't bring it up on camera. At the end of the interview, and I have video and photographic proof that I was with this guy. At the end of the interview, we walked him to his car where he had his driver waiting. And I looked him in the eye and I said, I swear on my life and on my family's life, there is no recording devices anywhere on my body. No cameras rolling. Please, General, like, please tell me, did Varginha happen or not? And Marco and I were just basically we were like, I'd never begged. I wanted to know so bad. And he looked at Marco and he looked at me. And as he was getting into his car, he opened up the back door and he goes, it happened. And he got in his car, closed the door, and off he drove. So I had, at that early stage, very definitive, for me, it's obviously, this is a story for you or anybody else listening to what I'm saying. Why on earth would he not want to talk about it? Why on earth would I have to beg and plead with him on my hands and knees to get him very discreetly at the last possible second when he was driving off to look at us and say it happened? Why on earth would he lie to us? You know, and so I had a pretty concrete level of confirmation early on the case. So now it's like, okay, we got to keep digging. We got to keep digging. But what we were finding is that the better the witness, the less likely they wanted to come forward, and that the more likely that they had been intimidated and threatened. And they would do it in a way where it wasn't like, hey, we're going to kill you. It was just like the punishment for violating your security oath or your security is going to be so severe. They would say, you know, so severe, you know, how's your family kind of thing. Not, we're going to kill your family, but these are the kinds of things. It was spooky, right? To the witnesses, like really spooked them. And then to get phone calls every couple years. Hey, how you doing? You know, that kind of thing. So we worked incredibly hard and we were so lucky. And I've got to tip my hat 100 times to Marco Leal, my producing partner, who's Brazilian, who's been investigating this case longer than I have. And he's been just a force to be reckoned with. Could never have done it without Marco.
It's incredible. What, so for people that are listening and watching, can you lay out kind of a linear timeline of what went down? What was seen first? Was it crafts, the crash, from the girls to the cop that actually captured the being?
So in January, probably 12th or 13th of 1996, there was a ultralight pilot by the name of Carlos de Souza. And Carlos was driving from Sao Paulo up to a state called Minas Gerais. It's a state to the north. And in Minas Gerais is Varginha and a number of surrounding cities. And he was driving on the freeway, and I think it was 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 maybe. And he saw something in the sky that was cigar shaped that didn't look right, and it looked like it was in trouble. And he witnessed it crash. Prior to that, there were it was like 2:30 in the morning. There were two farmers, which I interviewed both of them as well, that saw the object that looked like it was going to crash, but they didn't see it crash. There was two of them, and it was about 2:30 o'clock in the morning for them. And it was a cigar-shaped object and it had a gash in the side of it, and it had vapor coming out, like a white vapor coming out, according to the witnesses. But they kept kind of expecting it to impact the ground, but they didn't see it impact the ground because it looked like it was in serious trouble, and it was flying slowly. So then Carlos de Souza, like I said, was up early one morning driving to go meet some ultralight pilot friends of his to go flying, and he saw this object, and then he saw it kind of go down like it was going down, and he jumped off the freeway and he drove up this farm called Maiolini Farm, and he came upon maybe a football size field of debris and one very large piece of the cigar-shaped UFO that was kind of like metallic light that was still intact, but a lot of bits that were not intact. And he jumped out of his car. He ran up, and he said there were like these like tinfoil type pieces. He wasn't thinking extraterrestrial. He thought it was a government thing. He didn't know what it was.
He thought there were some people that were in trouble.
Yeah, he thought there was people in trouble. He wanted to help them. He never, ever, ever did he think alien. Not one time. Not till after what I'm about to tell you. So then, I don't want to give too much away, but he held one of the pieces, and he said it was light as a feather, very similar to what the description of the people at Roswell, where he could take it and crumple it up, and then it would rebound and reshape itself. But he said it was light, like just so light you could barely feel it in your hands. He was looking at it going, the hell is this? And then all of a sudden, these military trucks start rolling in. They take guns out and they threaten him, and he gets in his car, and they force him to leave, and it was all rather terrifying for him. And off he goes, and he was collecting himself, I don't know, half an hour down the road at a gas station, went in to get a coffee, and that's when he had a visit from these men. They basically like knew his name and knew everything about him and warned him of keeping his mouth shut.
This was right after?
It's pretty much right after, yeah. I think within an hour, half an hour, something like this. And a couple months after the incident, he met with a famous UFO researcher by the name of Claudio Covo, and he gave one brief on-camera statement, and then he vanished for 26 years. Well, Marco and his associates were, because I kept saying 10 years ago, I was like, we got to find the crash. We got to find Carlos. Like, we got to find the guy, but he was just vanished. I think it took us like 8 years and we found him.